Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am Amalgam Ash, and it's high time for another devlog, Project D, otherwise known as DeprHaven. This time around, I'm actually right in the middle of placing a common event, and I'll tell you why. Test play. So if you'll remember from the previous devlogs, I've got a test bed, which is a map in which I just place my very important events and NPCs and stuff all kind of together after grouping them up to make sure that the progress of the game can flow smoothly, to make sure that the mechanics will make sense, especially once you start getting them all lined up with one another and happening in the same scenes. And I can test every aspect of the game from this map. This here is the area in which I test the items and keywords functionality. So I just got all of my items and keywords, or items from that guy, and I got my keywords from that guy, and now I can cycle between them in the lower right hand corner of the screen. You can see the items and keywords that I have, and that system works great. Now, there's nothing left to do necessarily to make that system work. This guy will take the shovel if shovel is my currently select item. So we'll go back to shovel and talk to him again. And then he's got some text to tell me that my test succeeded. And that's really it. I think the shovel's still there. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that system. I would like to get a couple of extra keys set up so that you can cycle both back and forth in your keyword and item list, because I think that these lists might get kind of large while you're on your quest. But today I wanted to show off two things. One, I am working on the quest collection system next, and this will consist of the main story quest will always be active, and you'll always have kind of a reminder of what step in the story you're on in the heads-up display, the UI, and in menus, and you'll be able to get help for what to do next by studying the text in those menus. But we'll also have, in addition to main story quests, the side quests, of course, the staple of any RPG. While I talk about that, look at the upper left corner of the screen. I've got the active quest text that will be there whenever you have your HUD turned on, and whenever you want to turn your HUD or your heads-up display off, I'll let you key press toggle that as well. And remember, I'm using the hotbar system that I'm developing in Land of Extensia. So although we have a lot of functions that we're assigning to key presses, we're not going to run out of button press. We're not going to run out of keys anytime soon. So now we have the active quest appearing, and the name of the quest and the objective or flavor text quest appears right below it. Well, it's not flavor text. It really is the objective to tell you at a glance what it is you need to do during the main story. Now that's just placeholder formatting of the text, and exactly what's going to appear there, that's not finalized. What is there right now is just prototyping and testing purposes. So keep that in mind. The final game is not going to look like that or necessarily like any of this. Let's talk to the second maiden, the second of these quadruplets. She's asking if you'll accept her fetch quest. So if you say yes, then you'll get the message that you've accepted the quest, and then you'll see the formatting text for left screen appears on your HUD, the quest name as well as the quest objectives. And this time, quest name is surrounded in bold escape codes in the event, so it's supposed to be bold, but there is a problem with my display for some reason. I don't think that SGB likes me, or SGB, wow, I'm living in the past. I don't think that Bakin here likes me using bold with strings that I print on the screen, so I'm gonna have to report that, I think. So let's talk to the next lady. Will you accept my bounty quest? That's great, and then that appears right after, right underneath, and then that's the crafting quest. Now, I would like to make it to where I have lots of quests to do. I'm really more interested in the main story quest having a lot of varied twists and turns and variations, but I can see the merit of having side quests, and I'm actually pretty interested in developing the side quest system, the framework, so that I can make side quests very, very quickly, because my philosophy of game making has always been have extremely solid framework first, and if it's perfect, then it will take as much time to make the content as it will to play it. And this is my belief still. So I have just about zero content, but I have framework that I'm developing. Everything you see here is just framework. But the formatting for the bold on the quest names is wonky, so we're going to get rid of that, and we're going to do a couple of other things while we are in the map/event editor. So here's the event editor, and all it does for this event right here, which is always going to be running, and all of these events on the map are going to be running automatically in parallel with one another, but they're all separate events while they're on this test bed so that I can turn them off and on at will to make sure that there are no bugs. Bug squashing is fun, but it's important to make sure you facilitate a nice test environment so it's not frustrating. One thing I'm going to go ahead and do is take a look at this event panel here. We've got bold escape codes to either side of the string, and it doesn't look good, so we're not going to use them, I guess. Actually, I'm kind of interested in making the font a little bit bigger, and then we can make the font a little bit smaller for the quest descriptions. And instead of using bold, we can use the font size to kind of differentiate the two. All right, so that'll get rid of that visual yuck. I'm going to add a display conversation panel only so I have access to the input support guide here, so I can double check how exactly to use the input support. Font size is \Z followed by a number. So we're going to delete that, go back into here, and we'll play a little bit with adding \Z and then number. We'll do a 10 and we'll say this is size 10 text, and then we'll do a 25 and say this is 25 size text, and then we'll do a 50 and we'll do a 100 so I know what on earth these sizes actually mean. And you can do this sort of thing too. It's important to have, like I said, good solid test environment. So while you're building your test environment, you can do all kinds of crazy things to look at the sizes of the text over there. I'll get it to where it positions over the blue mat so you can see it better, but it's over here. The size 10 is unreadable. It is so small on my 4K monitor, and I don't know if this text necessarily will scale with the resolution or anything like that. So that's something I might look into, but I think if I lock the resolution, it won't be it won't matter at all. The size 25 text is extremely small. The size 50 text is extremely small. It is readable, but it is very small. Anything below 50, I think, would just be unreadable. The size 100 text is the size of the default. So anything under 100 is going to be smaller than the default. That's very good to know. We'll get back into here and we'll make all of our active side quests. We'll make those size 80. I think that's what I want to do. Test play to see if I completely borked it up. I'll talk to the 4 maidens now and get their 4 quests. And you'll notice that when I accept the quest actually appears in its predetermined position. They don't appear in order. That's something I'm going to be working on next. For now, I like this. I like this as the test environment. I like these titles being larger than the objectives they're in. One of the problems I'm going to have with this setup, though, besides the ordering of the quests, which I will fix, is that I don't have a way to display the number on the screen if I have an associated number attached to a variable. So, like, if I wanted to say, yeah, you've got to collect 3 pieces of, I don't know, a sacred talisman. And I would love follow the convention where you say, or you're able to display on the screen, 0 out of 3 collected in the same line. I'm going to have to do extra work and actually have a check running that checks to see if that quest is in your quest list and then places that variable somewhere close by, because there's no way to embed the integer into the string, if that makes sense. So that's a bit of a bummer, because I definitely want to have like collection quests where you go out and collect a number of things and then bring them back and you're able to see your progress on the screen without having to hit any buttons or anything. It's just a quick glance over to the side. Okay, so to take care of quest ordering, I'm going to need to create something that would be a common event that we would call. So we're going to add a custom event and conditional judgment. We are just checking string variable box. I'm going to create a new string variable. Make sure I do it in the right place. I'm just going to call it transfer. And just to make sure this will work the way that I want it to, I'm going to test the variable itself. Talk to this fellow. You currently have no string data to transfer. Okay, that works correctly. All right, back to this. I'm going to rename the transfer variable to transfer quest, active quest rather, name transfer, and another string variable called active quest description transfer. All right, so this is going to be somewhat of a nested if loop. And what I have in my mind, I'll explain it real quick before I do any sort of coding or event paneling or whatever you want to call it, panel eventing, is once I talk to the first lady, she's giving me a main quest, and that main quest will always be in the same place no matter what. Its position won't change because it's important. It is distinct from the side quests. But when I talk to these 3 other NPCs in any order, I would like the first quest to appear at the top of a list, the next one to give me a quest. If I accept it, that quest name and description will appear underneath the first one, and then the third one I talk to, that quest description will appear underneath the other 2. No matter what order I do these in, no matter which quests they are. Right now they are set up to appear in very specific positions because that's the easiest way to do it for prototyping, but we're all about building solid framework, and that's what we're going to do today. So now, instead of assigning these active side quest names directly, we're going to we're actually going to go to the text, and we're going to grab these 2 events, and we're going to copy them. We're going to paste them in our common event, which we actually need to rename. And I'll rename it right now to Quest Sorter. Actually rename it to HUD-Quest Sorter. That makes sense to me. That's kind of the only thing that's important right now, but you can name this sort of thing to anything that makes sense to you. All right, so whenever we call this event, this function, is basically what we're doing. We're creating a subroutine that will run through to completion and then bring us back to our current quest. And we're doing that to cut down on the amount of event panels that we need to populate and change whenever we make a new event, as opposed to putting all of the framework here and then just calling this with one event panel after populating the values that'll go into it. Trust me, it's a lot less work down the line. It's just a little bit more work to set up in the beginning, but the more ambitious your project, the more this sort of thing can save you time. And this is going to be an ambitious project, so this is going to save me a lot of time later. But anyways, to prevent any sort of bugs or errors or anything, whenever this event is called, it's going to check to make sure that the string is empty. And if it is empty, nothing is going to happen. But if this string is not empty, then these 2 event panels will fire. Well, okay, not these specifically. I just have these to help me with what's about to come next. See, these are assigned to string variables, and I need advanced string variable operation. I need the active quest name transfer to overwrite whatever is in the active side quest box, but only if what's in the active side quest box is empty. So you can see how I'm going to need several different if checks all kind of nested together, because I'm going to be testing all of the quest slots, I'll call them, to see if any of them are empty, to where we can assign this to the next slot in order. So these actually don't go here, they go in another loop that I'll need to make right in here. But I'll go ahead and set these up and then copy them, and then I'll paste them into the new loop once I make it. And hopefully it'll make sense once I do it, if it doesn't already. Anyway, we can get rid of this top event panel, and we can copy this next event panel, paste it right below, and we're basically just going to make it replicate function at the bottom event panel. It's going to take the contents of the active quest description transfer and transfer those into active side quest description 1. Now we can delete that. And now we have our key event panels that we're going to need. But truthfully, after we make sure that active quest name transfer is not 0, we need to copy this check string variable box and paste it right here, because the very next check that we need to make is that active side quest description 1 is not already 0. Now I'll actually check the name and not the description. I think that would be better practice. But I don't need to check both the name and the description, because when we assign values to these, we do it at the exact same time. We do one for the name and one for the description immediately after, with no other event panels in between. These 2 event panels must always accompany one another. So anyways, we'll just have these together. Now, I think if I knew how to do arrays in conjunction with string variables, I think that might be somehow easier handled than what I'm doing. But I'm comfortable with the mindset of what I'm doing enough that I don't think it's going to be any problem with efficiency, if that makes sense. So if active side quest name 1 is not 0, then nothing will happen, and these 2 quests will actually get pasted here. So I'm going to copy this, paste it right there. I'm going to copy this one and paste it right in the place where it needs to go right after that. Then I'm actually going to get rid of them off on this branch, and they don't need to be over here either. I can delete these keys from down there. Okay, so this is going to be more or less the template. We're going to copy this, and I think it'll copy the whole thing. So if active side quest name 1 is not 0, then we're going to check to see if active side quest name 2 is not 0. And if it is 0, then we will be transferring the contents of active side quest name 2. Or, I mean, we'll be transferring the active quest name transfer string variable contents to active side quest name 2. And we'll be transferring the contents of the string variable active quest description transfer to active side quest description 2. And I think I'd like to allow a total of, I mean, if this was like really, really ambitious, I would probably do like 6 side quests. I feel like that's reasonable. I think you can have up to like 25 or 30 quests active in a game like Final Fantasy XIV. I think you can have 30 active in Fantasy Life. This game isn't necessarily inspired by those 2 games, but I do really, really like the convention of accepting a lot of quests, but only having a few on the actual screen to remind you of what you've got going on right now. And while I want you to be able to assign those yourself, I don't know how practical it would be to make a system in which you can assign which quests you'd like to see on the screen yourself. That might be a master class in using event panels. And I have no doubt that I could figure it out, but I don't know if I want to spend the time to do it this particular project. So I think I might skip over that for now and just have these appear and disappear if you abandon them or complete them, and then they will reorder directly after that. We'll go ahead and say arbitrarily right now that you can have up to 4 side quests. So because of that, actually maybe only 3. Because I only have 3 sets of side quest variables that I've made. I guess I could go ahead and make some more. Description transfer, the description. If active side quest name 4 is empty, so we'll copy that name, we'll add a new one, and we'll name that active side quest name 4, and go ahead and select it. And if it is 0, if it doesn't contain anything, then we'll overwrite it, and we will put the contents of active quest name transfer into active quest name 4. We're doing the exact same thing for the description, which up to this point it wasn't important if it was populated or not, because like I said, we populate that at the exact same time as the quest name. So active quest description transfer, and then I've got to add a new string variable. So I'll copy the name of that one just to make it easier on the old fingies. There we go. Active quest name 4. Make sure I select that for that variable. Hit OK. Apply. Overwrite. Okay, this first lady, now, when you talk to her and if you accept her quest, she will put the string damsel in distress, which is the name of this quest, into active main quest name. But I want her to put it in active quest name transfer instead. And then the same thing with the active main quest description. She's going to put that in active quest description transfer instead. And then we will call that common event, and we're going to look for the HUD quest sorter. All right, we should be able to hit apply and then OK. So what I'm hoping will happen is I'm going to talk to any of these other quest givers. Shouldn't matter which one I do. Wait a minute, I just changed my my main quest person. That was not correct. We don't want to do that. The main quest stays. Oh God. Okay. People might have noticed that while I was doing this. That would be very embarrassing to be yelled at in my own devlog. Active main quest name. Those things stay. We don't worry about the that common event being called. It's this one. This one gives you a side quest, and he will select the active quest name transfer string variable for that, and the active quest description transfer there. There we go. And we'll call the common event. So far, I'm remembering stuff. Feels good. All right. HUD quest order, wait for the event to be completed. Okay, we can test play this. Okay, so it's my hope that I'll talk to this lady here, and actually, there's no way to test this with these current conditions. I need to also have this person set up the same way. Active name transfer, active description transfer, call common event. I can explain why it wouldn't have worked in that test, because if I had talked to this lady, quest would have appeared in the first spot, regardless of whether or not I had talked to the other 2 first, because that's just how that was set up. These gals all need to have this common event as well as the correct assignments of string variables for these tests to work properly, or at least 2 of them do, but I'll just do all of them since I'm here. It's very easy. So we apply, okay, test play, and I hope this works. Let's go. I will accept your bounty quest, and now they don't appear on the screen. So that's fine. That's our first thing we need to address. And somebody who's keen may have already spotted why this failed. I don't know why this failed just yet. I'm gonna hit F5. I'm gonna look at the contents of the variables. There are no contents in any of the variables at all. Why would that be? Active quest name transfer should be populated. Nothing happens though. What about you? Nothing happens. That does still happen. That's the main quest, and those things appear as they should. The side quest name and description do not. So why is that? Let's find out. Let's go figure it out. Personally, I think it's because my logic may have been backwards. If active quest name transfer is equal to nothing, and it wasn't, right? Was it? When I talked to you, it shouldn't have been. No, because we assign the string fetch will happen to active quest name transfer, and then we call the common event. So just to make sure that this logic is actually firing and that this is completed, I'm going to put a little conversation or a message here just for me, just so I can delete it, saying, yes, the initial transfer does happen, ? And actually put a message down here as well. I'll word these a little bit differently to make it a little bit more sense to me. Active quest name transfer is blank, and then here active quest name transfer is not blank. Both very useful pieces of information. We'll go ahead and test play again. All right, show me the money. I will accept your bounty quest. Active quest name transfer is not blank. That is beautiful. So why doesn't it work? All right, the problem is probably in my heads up display. We're checking these variable boxes. When active side quest name 1 is blank, as it should be, then we might be doing this backwards. To and what overwrite. So to what would imply that this actually needs to be the target and not the destination. So I was kind of thinking that visually it should be the other way around, but maybe that's not the case. Do this. Active quest side quest name 1 up there, and here I'll put active quest name transfer. We hit apply and OK, and we don't change anything else. We should be able to get a successful test by talking to any of them. I'll talk to the middle one again on the grounds of consistency, and that does appear over in the corner. So it was a case of doing it backwards. All right, that's totally fine, because now I know how to fix that immediately. We just have to reverse the positions. So advanced string variable operation 2, what? Active quest description transfer? No. Active side quest description 1, and the transfer is that one. Active side quest description 2, nope, that needs to be description transfer. This needs to be active side quest description 2. This is active side quest name 2. You'll see the result here in just a second. And yeah, actually, when I click out of the event panel, it is worded the way that would make sense by saying overwrite and then clarifying which string variable is going to overwrite string variable. It's clear in both cases. It was just a matter of me thinking that it would work the opposite way because I was used to this being the source and this being the destination, and that's just not how it's set up. That's all we should have to do there. I'm going to get rid of these 2 message boxes because I don't need them now. Hit apply, OK, and test play one last time. And now when I talk to her, it should appear at what I'm calling the top. When I talk to her, that should appear in second place. When I talk to her, that'll appear in third place, and that is what we would expect to see. That one doesn't work. We better fix that. All right, I believe I fixed that. Let's do the expected test that's going to give us the 3 quests in their 1, 2, 3 order as it would have always been anyway, and that works. Let's restart the test. This time we're going to talk to them in reverse order, and hers should show up at the top instead of the bottom, and seems to. Let's see if that's true. That works out great, and that's it. We've accepted all 3 of the quests, and they appeared in the opposite order. This might seem like a really small feature that's barely worth the time it takes to put in, but I've learned from playing a lot of different newer titles that it's really the little things that help me with immersion, and that's a feeling that I want to translate into this engine and spread to others as well. So this is important to me, to have flavor things like this that make sense when you put them in. And if it's easy to do, if it's accessible, then that might inspire others to want to put this sort of system into their game as well. Now, I don't think my devlog, which is full of word vomit and lots of very fast, out of context screenshots and video clips of my event panels, is necessarily going to be inspiring. But if this is something that you're interested in doing, I am basically showing you how to do it. But if you don't get it, or you just don't learn that way, which is totally fine, then I may be able to put out, if there is any demand, a sort of distribution that just shares these different systems, or add them to Land of Extensia or something. So if that's something you're interested in, do let me know. And then this guy, I can't remember what he does or says, but completely silent now. So we've made some improvements to the quest ordering system. What I need to do, what level 2 of this is make a 4th side quest NPC, so the 4th one can appear, but also make it to where when you take one of the quests away, they will reorder. That's going to be an important function. It'll be its own common event that gets called, because I think it'll be a lot more complex than the common event that adds them in. But anyways, while you're here, I'm going to show you a sneak peek of something. I recently acquired help to get the maps for this game lined out. The mapping is one thing that I think is especially important in a game like this, especially one made in a templated RPG engine, and I wanted to make sure that my maps really stood out. They had a lot of quality and care and time put into them, and I turned to the talented Siler Dean in order to help me make this happen. So I've actually commissioned a bunch of maps of the starting area of the game, which is the 6th Temple of Agape, and this is the main corridor. I have all of the other maps of the temple right now. I'm not going to spoil the surprise by showing them in this video, but I thought that I would show off something that I've gotten so far, and I really, really do like this map. In the game, I'm going to have different camera angles, but I'm going to have various controls locked depending on where you're at. So like for here, I wouldn't want you to do a whole bunch of rotating, but I have enabled up and down rotation, which I will lock so it doesn't go all the way up, because I don't like this. I think here would be quite enough, and that is an arbitrary decision that I'm making, but I'm also going to be listening to feedback given on this matter from people who are chosen to test play it. And then as far as like rotating the camera all the way down, I probably wouldn't allow you to go down this far, but I would stop you right about, well, maybe I'd let you go down this far. But even so, we've got to do some work with the sprites, because these sprites are just a couple of pixels low enough that their feet clip into the floor, and Bakin's special feature where it shows you the obscured part of the sprite by showing it in white for whatever part of the sprite is obscured really starts to show up right about here. And you can see that the bottom of the feet turn white. That's because the sprite is actually going into the floor just barely. That's just the nature of the system. It's fine that that's how it works, but I can defeat it by raising up the sprite a little bit, and the actual sprites that we'll be using, which won't be the defaults, will be handled in this way as well, so they're not going into the floor. Anyways, that's it for this devlog. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll share any sort of thoughts or feedback that you may have from watching it. This project is going to be demo ready this year. I can't say when, because I truthfully don't know. I need to have my systems in place, but I'll be continuing to share that progress here on the channel with you. Thanks again. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.